to thank uh, want to thank Superintendent Holland and from the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District from joining me, as well as Principal Heyman from the Connections Program. Thank you for being here. We're joined by the President of the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District, Debbie Carey. Bill Elam is here from the Assembly. He's also the liaison from the Assembly to the district. Mr. Taurianen is here from the district. Mr. Morse, both school board members. Assembly Member Cox. I also want to thank Representative Carpenter and Senator Bjorkman for being here. This is a very important issue to all of us. And just as I've crunched some numbers today. I want you to know that we're here. And Kenai Peninsula School District Board Member Virginia Morgan's online from Cooper Landing. Crunch some numbers today. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right behind me. Penny Vadla is here, and retiring Assembly Member Mr. Dirk Kevorkian is here as well. So thank you all for being here. Obviously, we care. We want to know where we've missed the mark and how we can get there. And I think it's a very important issue to this borough. My primary reason, as I crunch some numbers today, we've got approximately 8,450 total attending students, of which 1,039 are with connections. The total students possible is 9,893 approximately. And when you think about those percentages, 25% of our customer base of potential KPBSD students are homeschooled. And of that 25% that are homeschooled, 58% of those homeschooled children attend a homeschool program elsewhere. Now, my hats are off to the borough, to the district. You guys have done a very good job on looking at this differently. In the past, I believe that homeschoolers were looked down upon by the district. And that has changed with this administration. And Clayton, I really want to thank you for that effort. The bottom line is I would like for our homeschool students to attend our homeschool. So we want to understand what it takes, what the gaps are, what we're missing to bring you back home for a lot of different reasons. For me, it's a customer service issue. In this borough, I want to meet the needs of our customers. There are other things that are attached to that. There are funding impacts, there are other impacts, but the bottom line is we have a lot to learn, and we're just here tonight to listen. We're going to give each of you 3 minutes. When we run out of 3 minutes, if you'd like to return, you're welcome to do that. Representative Ruffridge, thank you for being here as well. So this is a frank discussion. We don't want you to hold back. We want to know how you feel about our program, how you feel about other programs, what's important to you as a parent. The way I view it is you are the experts in homeschoolers. You're the ones that know why you've chosen a homeschool, what's important to you in a homeschool program, the specific needs of your students. And I want to know what you and your family value most about homeschooling. And that's why these folks are up here as well. They're taking their time out to listen and learn. And for a very good reason. You're very important to us. Your children are very important to us. And we want to know what we can do best to meet their needs. So I'm going to hand it off to you, Mr. Superintendent.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Mayor Micciche for putting this together. I'm Clayton Holland, the superintendent for the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District. I know we just said that, but I'll just restate it. And, the last couple of years, we've really looked at, I guess the word would be how do we compete with IDA, but really I'm not looking at it as competing. It's how do we offer the best product possible for our students so they are the most successful and people naturally come to our school. And I do want to start by saying there are a number of families that we have hit the mark on and have been great families and connections over the years, but we want to learn if there's more that we can do to meet the needs of our students. So I'd like to give kudos to Principal Doug Heyman. When I brought him on, that was really the talk that how do we do that? And he has taken a lot of steps already in a short time as principal to, I think, improve upon what we do, to find out what we can do. A lot of people don't even know what we've done so far. So I hope tonight, Mr. Heyman can talk a little bit about that. But then realizing too, we have to be open to new ideas or to new concepts and find ways to say yes to, the needs of our students. So once again, I just appreciate you, Mayor Micciche, and that we're doing this together. And if you don't mind, if I can just let Mr. Heyman say a few words, is that?
That's where I was going.
All right, you're going there anyway. All right, Mr. Heyman.
Thank you, Superintendent Holland. I have very few words. I came here tonight to listen. See, I didn't really want to talk in the first place. So I came here to listen. I do have a great deal of pride for our current program. And so I wanted to make sure that that is represented, but also that we are improving, and we know that we can always improve. There are several other, there's funding sources that are important to at the borough level, but for me, it's absolutely the best program for your children. That's our objective. If we feel that if we have the best program, then kind of you build it, they will come almost, because if it is the best, the state requirements, the state regulations on how the allocations and so forth are dispersed are exactly the same from one program to the next. The historic perspective and even some of the day-to-day practices have been different. And I need to learn about what it is that motivates our families to seek help from a different district. We're not perfect. I just want to listen. So thank you for the opportunity. It's rare that I get this type of audience where I'm going to be the only people that ever come talk to the principal are the people who want to come talk to the principal. So I'm here just to listen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both for being here, as well as the rest of you up here tonight. I think it's a great partnership. It's an important partnership. We're all in this together, but it is just kind of high time that we hear from you directly. So I'm going to ask you to sign in if you're here tonight, because we'd like to continue communicating back and forth. What we're going to do is 3 minutes, and there's pizza in the back. Thank you, Mr. Bannock, who sponsored this meeting, and at least the pizza part. And we'd love to hear from you. So don't be shy. It's a community conversation. Please join us at the mic and let us know your thoughts. Someone should just break the ice. There we go. Dana, are we open on Zoom? Folks are having a tough time getting in. Okay, we will work on that. Ma'am, please state your name, and I'll start a timer for 3 minutes. Feel free to sit unless you're more comfortable standing. Okay.
My name is Angel.
Just push the red button. Bottom right.
So my name is Angel Jones, and I had a student at KBH Elementary last year, and she is autistic and she has ADHD. I was denied an IEP, a shadow, services for her, even though her teacher tried. I feel like KPD or the school board and the Kenai Peninsula failed my child. So we went to Connections, and they've offered us everything. And instead of getting what we considered F's, she's getting A pluses and individual attention that she could not get at school because there was 25 kids in her class. That's all I have to say.
Well, you can leave that on for the next person, but that's, thank you for that. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Next.
You said let it go, so did you mean it?
I did. I do. We do.
Well, my name is Misty Peterkin, and I have done homeschool with my kids for the last 3 years. I actually just re-enrolled them this year. And the reason I chose IDEA was because I made a phone call to Connections and they were not open when everybody was going back into coming out of it was in 2020. So Connections was still closed down for the summer. And so I called IDEA and they were open. And so I easily enrolled and they were amazing to work with. And so I gave Connections my first option, but coming out of it or coming in a pandemic or whatever, you weren't there and you didn't offer service. It was leave a message, we'll get back to you. We're closed for our summer session. And so IDEA, I called them and they were open. And so that's why I chose IDEA. And then I made connections with my teacher and she was amazing. And walking in there and the staff, they were always amazing and they worked very well with me. And now my kids are back into KPA or to the school district here. And I have to say, I'm frustrated with the policies. My son came home yesterday and says, "Hey mom, guess what happened?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know what happened, bud." And he says, "There's this one student that has anger issues in my class." And I said, "Oh, okay, well, what happened?" He says he's playing with a device and interrupting the whole class. I'm like, "Oh, okay. So what happened?" Well, the substitute couldn't get the device out of his hands. And so they brought in another teacher and nothing happened. So is what happened that not only did the kids not get their education, but they took all of the kids out of the room. And that one kid, that one repeat offender, because there's been other instances as well, disrupted the whole class. And so it's like policy there. Something needs to change so that these other kids that are in class get their education, plus the teachers that put in their time to make their lesson plans for their students aren't disrupted, because that's pretty frustrating for the teachers as well. And my son didn't get his full class attention. So that's my 2 cents. And there's other policies with our school handbook, which I know I'll be at site council, right? Right. And we're working on that as well. So I think that's what I have to say.
All right, Misty. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Next. All right, do I have to start assigning folks? I know you guys pretty well, so I'll call you up by name.
Okay, enough. This is low enough. Some of you know me, some of you have only met recently. I know everybody here is doing their best. Nobody sets out in the morning to do a bad job.
Can you please give your name before?
Robert Kinney.
Okay.
Nobody sets out in the morning to do a bad job, and many of you are not doing a bad job at all, doing a great job. It's not easy to run any of these programs, especially in today's world, today's society. And we joined IDEA this year, but for many years, about 2016, we started homeschooling in Texas. I lived in California. My wife's from California. I lived in California for 8 years prior to that. Grew up in Ireland. And Ireland and California are politically very similar. So I jumped out of the frying pan into the fire. We decided we did not want to school our kids in California. We moved to Texas, and it was a breath of fresh air. And within 2 years, Texas school systems became just like California. Now, we started homeschooling then long before COVID. When it was exactly as you described, it seemed like everybody, when we talked about homeschooling, and they were like, "Oh my God, your kids will be ruined. They'll never be the same. They'll never get a decent education." It's the best thing that has ever happened to our kids. With my background and feeling like a political refugee most of my life, finally found Alaska, probably freest place on the planet. It's been great to be here. And we didn't feel like joining back into any kind of systems. We've been trying to get away from big authoritarian agencies of all kinds, but we felt connections and idea here were pretty good. We went with idea only because they didn't seem to want as much control, and we felt we already had that. With our kids, we weren't struggling in that way. Other than that, I think both programs are really, have a lot to offer. So you guys are doing a wonderful job with that here, I must say. Most of everything we had, our curriculum, that's approved we already had. We were already been using it for years. So it's kind of nice that everything we were already doing as far as funding or anything like that, we were able to kind of, we're already pre-approved for that. The only thing I'll add, and this is not something that you can probably do anything about, where our schooling system went wrong in Europe, where it went wrong in California, where it went wrong in Texas, and this country as a whole, is when you stop funding Bibles and start funding gender theories and all this kind of nonsense. And I'll say that because it's probably not something that a lot of people, it might not be, how would I say, popular, but it's the truth. I don't want anybody teaching my kid, my 5-year-old especially, what gender they should feel they are. I want them to go learn curriculum. I want them to go learn math. And when they leave school, I want them to be able to go out in the world, balance a checkbook, and count back change out of $5. And that's about it. And that's all I have to say. But other than that, you guys are doing a wonderful job. I'm so glad you guys are offering these. And I know, it's hard to keep everybody happy, but I just want to say thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kenny. I appreciate your testimony. Next.
Hi, my name is Lisa Henderson, and just an introduction, I have lived here now for 17 years in the community, and we absolutely love this community. And we have been homeschooling for 23 years, so we're a little bit seasoned at this. And tonight, I just thought, basically, I want to just say that, first of all, we feel very blessed to live here because we lived and homeschooling has never been really rough for us. But in the place we lived before this, it was not as easy or as wonderful as it is here. So no matter what, I also have experienced both idea and connections. So I have that experience. I will tell you what we changed over for, and it was a long time ago. And it wasn't because the people at Idea weren't absolutely wonderful, because they were. It was sports. That's why we changed, because back in the day, you had to be part of a team. You had to be part of connections. So, but I actually really appreciate the fact that that is actually not, I love both organizations. I work as, I own something called the Wisdom Tree, and it's a parental co-op. And also other classes are taught there that we work with all kinds. So I work with both sides, and I absolutely love it. I just wanted to, I guess, give kudos to the community and say some of the positive things. And I'll tell you what kept me at Connections, if that helps. I walked in and I got an amazing counselor who listened to me. And it was good. And then she went and retired on me, and I was super scared. Wendy Dutcher was amazing, and I still love her to this day. And she became a flight attendant. Now I have to go flying to go see her. But and then I was a little worried, because when she left, I'm like, she knows me, she listens to me, she like gets my jive. And then, but Byron so far has been amazing, I have to say too. So, and I just, some of the things some of the parents have told me maybe to mention that might be helpful, which I already see steps towards this happening too, is to maybe make, like I said, sports for us is a very big deal. And actually we did leave the district and go to a different place to play sports because of the experience that our children was having. They didn't have, We had at first a very positive experience at Skyview when it was a high school, and we could tell we were like, kind of not like normal, or what you'd say, but they took us on, they listened, they saw my kids, and attitudes changed. But then we did have some kind of bad experiences at some of the schools as homeschoolers in school. Is that my time? Tell me when that's up. I don't know.
Yeah, usually that just means start thinking about maybe wrapping it up.
Okay. So I will try. So anyway, I just think maybe it's really kind of an attitude. I'm hearing things that are saying that's trying to change, and that's wonderful. And I think that part of that is just human nature, and there's just going to be things that happen like that sometimes. I had a mom said, hey, see if they can offer swim lessons during the day for some of the homeschool families. And I'm super excited about, that Connections has the prep school, and for the options that they have opportunities there now too. And so that's a really fun thing. And I just really want to just give that, I think just that connection between the community, the public school community and the homeschool community, and the fact that we're all really working together to educate our children, all of our children, and that and kind of getting some of those biases gone, which slowly have anyway. I've seen that kind of melting away. And the other thing for us personally, just now, right now, is if there's any way to create maybe some teams, maybe, I don't know if this is even possible, but if Connections could have their own, because I've got some that are very, very into the drama type teams, and I also have some that are very into the sports teams, and I don't know if that's a possibility, but something that I would really love to pursue, of actually having our own teams too. So I think that's it.
That's excellent. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mrs. Henderson. I appreciate your testimony. Thanks. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Laura Burke, and I've homeschooled with Connections since 2007. And I will say, talking about attitudes, I definitely appreciate the newer, more collaborative attitude. I will say when I first started, it kind of felt like they wanted you to be in the brick and mortar schools, and they kind of, I don't know, it didn't feel like as much of a teamwork. It kind of felt like they were just bossing you around and telling you what you had to do. And I think it's come a long ways. And when I first was going to enroll my kids, I called around to Idea and Connections and Raven and whatever other ones there were at the time. And the reason I went with Connections was because you could enroll your kids in classes in the public schools. I had kids with speech impediments, and I took them, and they got that corrected. So I was happy to do that in the public school system here. They had a bigger allotment. The kids could take classes if they wanted to. And I just felt like it was a better fit. And also knowing lots of parents that their kids are in Idea, I feel like they have more paperwork to do, like the midterm reports and stuff. They have to do more than Connections does. So I'm very happy with Connections. And one area that I would like to see improved, something with the taxes. Like if Connections puts in an order for you, they don't have to pay taxes. But if we buy something ourselves and put in for reimbursement, they don't reimburse the taxes, but we have to pay them. And there are certain places where they say, well, you have to pay for that yourself, such as if you're going to go out on a tour of Kenai Fjords or something. And so then that becomes significant if you're doing multiple children on an expensive item like that. And so something where the district would pay for it upfront instead of us having to pay those taxes, that would be a major improvement in my estimation. But I'm very happy with the Connections. The people I know who that are in Idea, and I've asked them, why did you go with Idea? One of them, she said, well, I was up in the Anchorage area anyway, so that was the local one, or she thought it was the best one up there at the time, and then they moved down here. And so just for ease, they stayed with it. A lot of people have friends and they just, oh, well, my friend does this, so I just joined that. And so a lot of them never really looked into connections or maybe didn't know it was an option, but just their friends recommended the other. And so they went with that. But I'm very happy with connections and plan to be with it for another 10 years or more. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Burke. Next. Go Grizzlies.
My name is Dean. On or off?
You're on.
My name is Dean Birch. I don't have any dog in this fight. I do have some serious questions. I don't know why. I appreciate the fact that you're trying to make the program better, but I don't know why you're doing it. Our goal is to educate children. If IDEA is doing a good job, why aren't we supporting IDEA? If they've got the secret sauce, it's all in the air, in the mail. Why do we care that the mail's coming to our box? Why don't we support the program that's actually providing an education to the children? I'm heavily involved with the school our church has got. For more than 10 years, we've graduated students a grade to grade and a half higher than the national average. But we don't have choice. We don't have vouchers. Why not? Are our kids important or is our money important? I've been told that our regular school system, the public school system, is the best of the worst, but maybe IDEA's is. But one of the reasons I've been told is that teachers can't fail students. It takes an act of God. So what we do is educate to the lowest common denominator, and that's wrong. Learning at your own pace. If I had to learn at my own pace, I still couldn't read. I have to have somebody tell me to do something because I don't feel like reading that day. I feel like a dog. There's just stuff that doesn't make sense. I appreciate the fact that Connections wants to be better, but I don't know why we want to be better. Why don't we support the schools that are actually educating the children? Why don't we have vouchers? You and I talked about this before. We need vouchers. And I guarantee you, if the school district starts losing money because the students are going to some other school, the product is going to be improved. Competition improves the product. Elephant in the room. Some of the students are failing because the parents aren't involved. These parents are obviously involved. They're homeschooled. They're real involved. If the parents aren't involved, we're condemning our kids to secondary citizenship. They will never be able to compete. And as long as we don't have truant officers to see to it that Johnny gets to class, that if he doesn't get to class, maybe dad has to shadow him for a day. And I guarantee he won't miss class again because there's way too much embarrassment factor going on there. There are things you can do that we are not doing. I don't know why we're improving our system when there's a system that is already improved.
So Dean, thank you for your testimony. I appreciate that. I'll give you a call tomorrow. I do enjoy our talks. You sort of went both ways, and my job is to listen. We're trying to compete.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, online we have Carrie Nelson. Are we ready? Carrie, can you hear me? Do you see Carrie Nelson? We have our techie assembly member here that okay, Carrie, if you can unmute, you texted me, you can hear me. I think you can start your 3 minutes once you unmute.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to share, this is really passionate thing. So I've had this study for about 13 years, and we offer pre-K through 6. And this year, my parents were really excited that the law had changed. And so it's not the voucher system yet, but IDEA and the principal at Connections had contacted me and said that the law had changed and they could now fund the non-secular pieces that the study, so they could be co-enrolled. However, as I educated my parents to go to Connections, which I have 60 families, they, were met with not being educated on how the law changed. They said that I was advised by Doug, the principal, that my families could enroll. And then as my parents went, they said that their lawyers said that no longer is the case. So it was really sad. My parents were really frustrated with the whole process with Connections, and they felt not supported. So IDEA had contacted us, and they just did a beautiful job helping my parents understand how they could get reimbursed for the secular courses. So now my parents can do the co-enroll, and they can get reimbursed the $2,800. So my tuition is about $5,800 per year, but they get reimbursed for the secular courses. The concern that I have, that I've communicated to Doug and to the district, is that other entities, other private schools on the peninsula are saying, yes, our tuition, I'm hoping this is going to make sense. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. They've communicated that we cannot have any courses paid for if it's said that it is in the study's tuition. However, I've seen other invoices for other private entities that say, here's what we're offering. We're offering reading, we're offering math, we're offering, but then on their subcategories that Connections will pay for, it says grammar, it says, maybe like multiplication. So what I don't understand is I'm not gonna make my invoices just work for that when I'm being completely honest with the Galena School District, what we're offering, the secular courses, and Connections is paying for a different entity. I just don't want to say the name. Because they have these subcategories of classes or coursework, and the thing is if little Maggie or little Johnny is taking a course with the study, and they can't read, I'm not going to say, well, I'm going to not pull from this grammar, or I'm going to pull from this grammar curriculum. I'm going to use everything I've got to educate that kid. So what I'm saying is, like, if I am using Houghton Mifflin, or if I'm using Scott Forsman and that's a secular curriculum, they're saying if that's tied to tuition, they're not going to pay. However, Galena will, and they took all 60 of my students gladly. And so they all jumped ship from Connections, Peter. And so for me, as a small business, I didn't lose out. I just wanted to work with Connections. I've worked with Connections for 13 years. And maybe what the public doesn't know is we take all public school students. They can't do algebra, they're failing. We up those scores. So we tutor across the district. And so I'm really confused why Connections will pay for a Spanish course, they'll pay for an algebra course, they'll pay for all the reading tutoring. But I say, oh, I'm doing Scott Forsman, which is a secular curriculum. IDEA will pay and help my parents, kind of like the voucher system. However, Connections will not.
Thank you, Carrie. If you can't see us, we're taking notes up here, and if you get a chance with a little bit greater clarification, I'm sure Doug knows exactly what you're talking about, but if you don't mind emailing me and the superintendent and Doug with details, I think this is an important issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been in contact and they've given me examples of their receipts, etc., of ones that they allow. And I'm going to teach the kids. And so my kids are going to, it can be Scott Forsman or it can be a secular curriculum, you know, and I'm not going to make my receipt have the little subcategories that I'm going to pull from whatever I can to teach my kids to read. So, yeah. And I've been in touch with all of my parents. So, yeah. Superintendent, we've been in touch with Doug, and I've been in touch with Tyson Cox. We want this to work, this partnership, and the study can only help raise the bar on the Kenai, the educational, you know, with everybody. But with my homeschool parents, I was just very sad that we had to, you know, make a different choice.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Carrie. I know you have a lot going on. I really appreciate your call tonight.
Yeah, sorry I couldn't be there in person. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Okay, next in the room, you'll let me know if there's others on Zoom that would like to testify. Mr. Dorkavorkian.
Jeff pretended like he wanted to jump up. But okay. All right, Richard Dorkavorkian, here tonight speaking as a parent of a student enrolled in the KPBSD. So I currently have a 6-year-old enrolled in the Kenai Peninsula School District and a 3-year-old that will be in the future. I care about the success of our district. So over the past few years, I've talked to many parents about homeschool, the KPBSD, and why they choose one program over another. I get many examples of why IDEA is their choice over Connections. The consistent theme is that IDEA has better support than Connections and more curriculum choices. When I talked to a current school board member about this issue at a recent assembly meeting, I got a message that concerned me. I quote from a current school board member, "The state needs to change the law to force these parents to move to Connections." Me and this board member obviously think very differently. That is not the solution. These parents deserve a choice. Why should someone be forced into a program or school that they don't feel is the best for their children? The school district needs to turn Connections into the best business available. I applaud Clayton for the effort he's made to improve the KPSD program. I've spoken to him many times over the last couple of years about improving it. Judging by the enrollment numbers, not enough has been done yet. The KPBSD is leaking millions of dollars out of the district. They can't afford not to fix the problems and perceptions of Connections. The district is going to spend $140 million educating 8,400 kids this year. The mayor mentioned that 25% of the kids on the Kenai Peninsula are choosing homeschool over brick and mortar schools. The KPBSD is about to put a 43rd school into service while threatening parents to close down pools and shut down music classes. The district is facing a $13 million deficit. We need to do better. Thank you.
You're no longer an assembly member, but did you just do that with your thumbs while you were sitting in the audience?
Yeah.
Nice work. Thank you for that, Mr. Dorkavorkian. Next.
Jeff Lithgus, Soldata. First off, I just want to thank all of you guys for this meeting. I think it's long overdue. I think this is just amazing conversation that really, really needed to be had. I think growing up, there was kind of a stigma on homeschooling, and there was a push trying to get kids back into the brick and mortar. And so embracing homeschooling, I think, is the right direction. I think nationwide trends are trending that way for a variety of different things, and I don't think that's going to go away. So I don't think it's something you just put your head in the sand and it's just going to be, always want to improve brick and mortar, but I don't think that by itself is going to solve it. There's too many issues, cultural and other things that are going on. So this conversation is super important for me. I have a 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and a little boy that's going to be coming along. And so all these are huge topics for me, especially when some of the deficits that we're facing are coming up there are going to impact, my kids from that side. So again, thank you so much for this meeting and really appreciate it. On Echo, again, I thought the point of this meeting tonight was really to differentiate kind of and how we can improve connections and keep funding here. Not just kind of bash on the current ones is solutions. What can we do to get better? It's always important to improve no matter what. I really don't like the concept of just, hey, someone else does it better. We still have kids and connections. So we want to improve the level for all of those kids. So what I've talked to quite a few people about the homeschool program. Again, I did do 1 year growing up in homeschool, but went through the public schools and actually private. So I have a little bit of history on all ends of the spectrum. But what I came up with just talking to people that are in the programs right now was actually one of the biggest reasons was what Ms. Nelson said on the phone when I was talking to people that had chose recently. That was a huge factor. Lots of people were referencing that differentiation. They're trying to explain it to me. I didn't really understand it. I plan to meet with people and kind of get what those rules are and why Galena is able to do that and Connections is not. So I think just constructive understanding that why parents are having to choose that based on that, because that's out there in the community. So I think a lot of people are just going straight to Galena because they hear that is being used and that they can't get the same services. Location was something that was frequently referenced, the locations. Dark, scary, I don't know, words like that. And then the actual program and people's experience with it, I think the communication level, again, I don't know the past of it, but I think there's so many people that have such a great streamlined experience with Galena that travels out in the community. And so I think that's a big one of getting that out there now if there's been changes or whatnot, and making sure, again, there's not missed calls, there's that type of communication level that people feel. Again, I think sounds like there's great changes that are coming from Connections, but those are the big ones that I heard. Was again location, what Ms. Nelson said, and that communication piece. And then there was a little bit of people referencing religious affiliation, and that Galena was a little bit more friendly to Christian families or people's religious views. And so I don't know the facts related to that, but that is what I heard from the people that I talked to. So those would be my input to you guys. But we do need to compete. You're absolutely right. I completely support you. We need these dollars staying here. I think it starts with supporting homeschool families. And then again, win, I don't want to call it a battle, but we need them to be spending those dollars here. I equate it to buy something off of Amazon, or I go down to Sweeney's. If the product's the same, I want to stay here. They employ my kids. Money circulates back. So again, teachers, jobs, all that. We want to keep it here. So I'm a local guy, community guy. I want these dollars to stay there. So we got to figure out how to keep them here. So improve Connections. If Galena's doing something great, let's steal it. I'm serious. Steal it, take it, make it better. And brick and mortar, let's make that better too. So thank you.
That's excellent. Hey, Jeff, before you leave, I just didn't understand one thing about the dark, scary.
Something with the location of the current outbuildings. They were saying that the other location is a lot easier, accessible. I don't know where that is even, but that was just a reference. They kept saying location of the building itself was something that wasn't as easy and accessible, and they had a harder time finding it. Again, I don't know a lot about that yet. Just started to get educated on it.
Thank you. I was hoping you weren't talking about Doug.
No.
Thank you, Jeff. Next. This is good. This is great stuff. I appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Hi, my
Hi.
name, excuse me. My name is Matthew. I'm a resident of Soldotna, small business owner. I've got my daughter who's currently in IDEA. I've got grandchildren that are either in IDEA or Connections. So I've got experience with both. I've got other kids that are now grown that were part of Connections. Connections can be a good program. It's got a long way to go. One of the biggest things that IDEA gives us that Connections doesn't is the ability to tailor our programs and our instructions for the kids. We get to help pick and choose. My daughter, who's now 12, was part of the brick and mortar school system, constantly running a year and 2 years behind. By putting her in homeschool, we were able to get her caught up. Because with IDEA, we were able to control the curriculum and what we wanted to teach her. With Connections, it wasn't. It's, this is what you're going to do. This is the curriculum you're going to use. You're going to turn this in. You're going to turn this in. With IDEA, I get emails from them at least once a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, checking with us, seeing if we need anything, making sure everything's okay, and making sure that we get any reports that they need, or they get us any books or information that we need. As for extracurricular activities, IDEA has been paying for some lessons and stuff for my daughter and providing that kind of stuff for her. So it's been good there. One of the big things, I can only talk on my own personal level. One of the big things that really turned me down with Connections is, and I've spoke to the school board, I went up to the state and the state sent me back down to the school board, was we wanted some biblical reference in our school, in our teaching. So I talked to Connections. Oh, we can't do that at all. If it says anything with Bible or religious, we can't do it. It just won't get paid for. So I called, they told me I had to go to the school board. I called the school board. School board told me it was the state restricting it. So I called the state. The state said, no, the school chooses. We have this broad thing right here, and the school decides how far down they want to take that, whether they'll allow this and this, but not this. So after about 2 weeks of going back and forth, trying to figure out who was going to allow what, it got put, nope, it's the state, nope, it's the school. I gave up. IDEA lets me do it. They don't stop me. They don't throw a fit about it. We send in her schoolwork. We send in her work samples, and they're okay with it. They don't demand that we just stick to this one curriculum. And I've been in this community for a major portion of my life. And I went to school here. I own a business here. And trust me, I really want to see this place succeed. As I plan on retiring here. So if we can't get our school system in line, then we're going to have some big problems. I've sat in here and listened to the school board talk about how they're going to make all these changes regardless of what the large conglomerate of people coming in and saying, no, we don't want these changes, but they're going to go ahead and put them in place. Otherwise, they won't get these federal dollars. So they really want these federal dollars. So they're going to make these changes regardless of what the parents say. That kind of stuff really needs to stop. You know, we need to stop. I understand we still need those federal dollars for stuff, but we need to be able to dictate what we're going to do in our community and how we want to see our community go. Not having somebody thousands of miles away tell us what we're going to do in our community just because it works in California or Oregon or Florida or wherever. Not every place works the same, and our community is our community. That's all I got.
Thank you. Sorry, we have folks online that have been waiting for quite some time. Chandra Caffroy. Chandra, if you can unmute, we're ready for your 3 minutes, please. And folks here, if you can please sign in. If you haven't already, I would really like all of us to start communicating back and forth. I think it's helpful. Aaron Donham, please, if you can unmute, we'll try to go back to Chandra or Chandra. Aaron Donham, please.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you. Well, yep, my name is Aaron Donham, and I'm the father of 4 school-age children, or excuse me, 4 children. 3 of them are school age. I live here in Nikolaevsk, and I work in Homer. We started homeschooling our kids in 2019 prior to the pandemic because of some issues that we experienced at the Nikolaevsk school. We initially started in the Connections program, but as you've heard from a lot of the different parents and people here, the customer service just wasn't very good. We ended up with the IDEA program, and we've been with them ever since. Just recently, a group of families here in Nikolaevsk have kind of begun what's called a Nikolaevsk co-op. And I believe there are more than 20 students in this cooperative. We are working through the IDEA program. But we have found it very difficult, unfortunately, to work with the Kenai Peninsula School Board. And we've, and I'm not necessarily a part of this, but some of the other mothers are. Miss Chandra is. And but they've tried very diligently to get access to using a classroom at the Nikolaevsk school, and which is we've been denied by the borough use of a classroom there. And I find that frustrating, especially when you just sat here and spoke and said, hey, we want to work with homeschool families. Hey, we want to work with the community. We're the community, and the reason these parents are going with the IDEA program, the Galena School District, is because they're voting with their money, and they don't want to support a school board that is not supporting the parents. And I think if we can get more positive interactions with the Kenai Peninsula School Board, then I think you'd have more people in Connections. I think in addition to Connections allowing a more variety of curriculum and parents a little bit more freedom. I would love to send my kids to a brick and mortar school. I would love to send them to Nikolaevsk. We just recently got a new principal. His name is Gregory Melvin. He is phenomenal. I'm very happy with him. I'm also a Nikolaevsk Community Council member, and he's been attending our community council meetings, and he is very active in the community saying, hey, what can I do to get more kids in this school? Because unfortunately they have 20 some kids in that school, and there are, I would imagine, more than 100 kids in this Nikolaevsk school district, but half of them homeschool, the other half attend Chapman, or their parents take them to Homer, or their parents will take them even to Ninilchik, because we've had such a bad experience with the Kenai School Board and with the Nikolaevsk school as a whole. Though like I said, that is changing. But if we as parents felt like we were being heard from the school board, from the Kenai Peninsula School Board, I think you'd have more parents, spending their money on the peninsula. And I agree. Like I believe in our community. I applied to be the high school basketball coach for Nikolaevsk. I don't have any children that want to play basketball. My sons wrestle. but I feel like I want to be the type of community member that says, hey, I'm going to step up and help out kids because there's not a coach. And I happen to play and I happen to have a little bit of skill in the sport, and I can share that and bring it to these children. And I think that well, I appreciate you listening to me. I appreciate what you're doing, Mayor Micciche, and I do hope success for Connections, and I do hope success for our whole borough. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donham. I really appreciate your testimony. Next, we have Christiana Smith, please. If you can unmute yourself, I assume she's still on Zoom.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi,
Good, yes.
my name is Christiana Smith, and I'm a resident of Seward. I have two children, one that's in 3rd grade at the Seward Elementary School, and I have a 12th grader who I've been homeschooling through Connections for the last 4 years. We went to Connections because for high school for my oldest child, because there was a lack of availability of classes at the high school for him to take, and I wanted him to have a consistent academic life through high school, and Connections would be able to provide that with us without him going a year or two at the brick and mortar Seward High School and then switching to Connections for his junior and senior year. I am a supporter of public education. That's one reason why I went through Connections, because I want to support the local brick and mortar schools. I want to support the public schools, and I am very grateful that Alaska allows for such flexibility with providing resources for homeschool families within the district. Some of the comments that were made tonight have resonated with me. One of the pros that I found through going with Connections was at the end of my son's freshman year. He is on an IEP, and he has been since 7th grade. And at the end of his freshman year, working with Tony Jackson as our special education coordinator, we were able to identify ways to make my son more successful in his studies. We've been able to have some course accommodations that have been easier to work with rather than having to go to the schools and talk to the administrators and talk to the teachers, because I am my son's teacher. The local office here, the academic advisor and the assistant in the office are absolutely wonderful. And I'm saddened to hear that some people have had negative experiences with their local Connections office. Ours here in Seward, they're regularly sending out emails, making sure that the families are aware not only of resources provided through Connections or dates that we should be aware of, but also community events within Seward and even connection activities throughout the peninsula. Some people, there was something said about religious curriculum and Connections or IDEA being able to be reimbursed for the non-religious parts of that and having issues. That has not been my experience. My son's freshman year, we utilized some online courses through BYU, and all I was asked to do was provide a syllabus from those courses, which were easy to obtain and print out, and was able to supply those to the academic advisor just reiterating that there is no religious curriculum in the English, social studies, whatnot, courses that he was taking. So everything has been pretty easy so far working with Connections. My youngest is already asking about, you know, when she can homeschool. And, you know, I told her when you get to middle school, we'll start having that conversation. When you get to high school, we'll start having that conversation. My hope is to be able to send her to the brick and mortar school, but unfortunately, the courses available at the brick and mortar school of Seward High School is limited without taking distance learning courses, even to meet the minimum requirements for graduation. And so my family, you know, we made the choice to homeschool for high school, and it's very likely that my son would have had to utilize KPC for some of their jumpstart courses. Last year and this year, he has been taking some UAF courses to fill out his academic portfolio. And the great thing about Connections is we're able to be reimbursed, where if he went to the brick and mortar school of Seward High School and we had to have him take additional courses to take higher level math and science. Like
Mariah, I'm sorry, Mrs.
yeah.
Smith. I'm gonna have to ask you to wrap you up. You're about 2.5 minutes over your 3 minutes.
Sorry.
No,
So
it's
yeah,
great stuff. But
if we were going to a brick and mortar school, my family would have to pay for those courses out of pocket, which we likely would not be able to do. But with Connections, we're able to be reimbursed so that my son can take the academic courses that best fit him.
thank you, Mrs. Smith. Could you email me, without saying the name publicly, email me the person who is your counselor at Connections, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. There may be an individual practice thing that we need to talk about or learn about. Okay, thank you so much. Next is Mariah Schlott. Mariah, can you unmute yourself? And you have 3 minutes. We'll try to stay a little closer to 3. I'd like to hear from everyone if possible. Mariah, it seems like you're unmuted. If you can speak up, we're ready. Okay. We're going to come back to the room and we'll check on our online folks in a few minutes. Anyone still in the room? We'd love to hear from you.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Bertoldo. I'm from Micciche, and I think probably most of the people would say that they believe every word of the Holy Bible. And the Holy Bible says that for a nation to be blessed, they need to obey every word that is in this book and teach it to their children. And the nation will be cursed if they do not. And I want this nation to be blessed. I want this state to be blessed. I want our borough to be blessed. I want our families to be blessed. And it seems to many of us that the reason why we feel like our schools are in a state where we don't know we can bring it back to success is because we have forsaken this book, teaching it to our children. And I think that if we're going to use tax dollars to fund education publicly, if parents can't or aren't willing to teach their children themselves, and they trust public teachers, or people in the public to teach their children for them, then we need to be willing to teach this for them. And I'm not saying force it on them, force it on children, but introduce them to it and let them know about it so that they are able to make a choice and able to hear it. And I think that this is a nation that is based on Judeo-Christian values, and that is why this nation is and has become so great. And if we want it to stay that way, or if we want it to be that great again, we need to go back to that. So my family does not use Connections. We do homeschool. We don't use IDEA either. We have chosen, because we have tried private school, and that didn't work for us either, a Christian private school. And so we wound up homeschooling for many different reasons that have been added to the list as the years have gone by. But number one, I think, is the fact that when you finance your children's own education, the government leaves you alone and lets you teach your children the way you want. And you're allowed to live more freely. And so I've been told the reason why Connections doesn't use faith-based curriculum is that it needs to be compliant with state and federal law. And that reason, and that the reason that the Cook Inlet Academy, for example, can use faith-based curriculum is because it doesn't take federal or state money. It seems to me whenever a school or homeschool program accepts money from the government, they either voluntarily or involuntarily surrender their right to use the Bible to teach basic truth and knowledge to children. And we know that we're missing out on basic knowledge and truth because children are not, seem to be confused about what gender they are. Very basic knowledge. An assembly member recently told me that there are subjects that Connections offers, like math, that doesn't need to be faith-based. But it seems to me that if all curriculum is not faith-based, then the worldly brainwashing creeps in. For example, someone recently told me she was helping her son with his homework, and there was a math problem asking him to calculate the carbon footprint a certain car would make on a certain trip. What parents want Greta Thunberg in their back seat lecturing them and screaming about the carbon footprint that their trip to the store is making? I don't want professionals, experts, government, or bureaucrat officials telling me who, what, when, and where to teach my child. Standardized testing is fine and good because we need to know that our tax dollars are used effectively and how they are supposed to. But standardized teaching defeats the purpose of homeschooling. If the test requires the student be well-versed in worldly thinking or compromise their faith or the faith of their parents in order to do well on the test. Another reason would be the test scores that we're seeing in the district right now. Sure. Okay, so that's the gist of what I wanted to say, I guess. I think we need to just be very careful about accepting federal dollars if we want to have freedom to teach our children what we want, and not just federal dollars, but state dollars, and not be afraid if we are going to use that money that way to stand up for the Bible.
Next.
Hello, excuse me. My name is Chelsea McGarry. I recognize you, Doug. It's been a while, but I just wanted to come up here to share a bit about the heart behind why I chose to homeschool. I have 3 boys, and my background is actually not homeschooling. I was in the public school until high school and then was in private school. So my husband did do some homeschooling. But when my first son came of age, I just did not feel like I was done investing in him in that way. And I just took it a year at a time. It wasn't like, okay, I'm jumping into a whole life of this. It was 1 year at a time. But as I moved forward, we enrolled in IDEA because through connections that we had made, it was really highly recommended to us. And as I took it year by year, I really grew in confidence in educating my kids. And it just was a wonderful fit for our family. And so I don't have anything to say about Connections. I have zero experience. I have zero experience with them in the public school system. So when we enrolled, when my son was in kindergarten, that was a while ago, he's 17. We enrolled in IDEA. And I guess what I can share with you is why we've stayed with IDEA and why we've never felt like we needed to look anywhere else. And that was because we had great community. There is like an amazing network of people and teachers and resources there that provided a really safe place for us. I also felt like I had a lot of support to function pretty independently, which is funny because we do have to submit a lot of paperwork. And we are really supported, but we're supported in doing what is right for our family. And so, yeah, I think the other thing I would say is that, you know, paperwork has been mentioned a bit and the paper trail, and I've really appreciated the paper trail at IDEA. I feel like it gives a really good record of what we've done, what we've accomplished, and where we've come from. So yeah, those, I just wanted to share kind of, I know you guys are here to listen, and I'm not, you know, I don't really have an investment in this fight other than I do hope my kids stay here, you know, if that's what their life has for them, and invest in this community. And so someday they will have kids, and I care about our community. I care about our school district. And I really appreciate being here to hear from you all and to hear a lot of this is new to me. So I want to say thank you for you guys for listening and for seeking to do better. And yeah, I appreciate you.
Thank you, Ms. McGarry. It's go way back with the McGarrys. I don't know how many of those boys I'd want to homeschool, but next.
Hi, my name is Shimon Tanner. I'm not a parent.
Can you repeat your name?
My name is Shimon Tanner. I'm not a parent, but I'm a connection student, and I spoke to my mother about this, and we came up with some ideas. I've been homeschooled my entire life. I started out in IDEA, and then we switched over to connections just about when I arrived at high school age. One of the reasons we chose IDEA when I was younger was partially because it was like the first option that came up to us. We knew some people in IDEA. But also we really appreciated the flexibility with curriculum, which was very helpful when I was a child when we were trying to figure out exactly what we wanted with our academics. And so we were able to experiment with lots of different things. One of the main reasons we joined Connections, we switched to Connections, was because we could take high school classes. And that really helped me and my brother, especially with math. When we were able to take high school classes and get credit for it while we were in middle school, we ran out of classes while we were in middle school. So that was one thing that we really appreciated, was being able to take classes through the district and get credit for that, as well as having from a student perspective, it feels very much more legitimate when we get a grade from a teacher that isn't directly in our own family, because when her mom gives us an A, it feels almost like, like we did a good job, but it also feels like, well, maybe she just is biased towards us or something. But I really appreciate being able to connect with other teachers, and this also really helps us later on when we're looking for recommendation letters and such for going into college and things like that. We need to have these connections, and I really really appreciate being able to take classes from the district. Another thing is that some things I think we could improve on is maybe being able to connect more to local businesses, to offer like internships or job trainings for student like juniors or seniors. This will also help us keep students here if they put down some roots early here, helping out with local businesses. That will really help keep our students here and bolster our community. Another thing is that as a student, I also really feel that I've missed out on a lot of social aspects of being in high school and things like that, as opposed to public schoolers. I participate in sports through connections, which is another thing that I really appreciate being able to do. But it always feels like there's something different, because as a homeschooler, I'm at home all the time. And then the public schoolers, they have a social life. They're out with their friends a lot, things like that. I think that could be something we could try to improve on, maybe making more team events, or like a drama club, a debate club, anything that could help the students feel more like part of a student body and not just a whole bunch of little separated parts. One more thing is that maybe being able to bring more opportunities for competitions and stuff like that. I remember in middle school, I participated in math counts, and in order to do that, I had to go through Kenai Middle School. And I feel like that's something we can improve on, is try to bring our students more opportunities that public schoolers have, whether it be through ASAA or any kind of competition that is usually open to high schoolers. If we try to bring it to our homeschoolers, I think that will really help us in academic and social aspects. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Shalon? Yeah, notice the timer didn't go off. It wasn't going to. Thanks for being here. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. I'm Tiffany Holt. I'm from here in Soldotna. I am a veteran homeschooler. Lisa has me beat by a bit, but I've been homeschooling since 2007. I have 7 kids. We have homeschooled in a lot of states. We've been in California, Alaska, Hawaii, Texas, Utah, and Alabama, and been in different programs in all of these states. So I do have experience enough to know that I absolutely love Alaska's programs. There have been some that I truly hated. And when we got out of the military and we already knew we were coming back to Alaska, one of the things that made that decision for us, because we do have 7 children, is that Alaska helps fund our homeschooling. And I really appreciate that from both IDEA and Connection. So we actually are in IDEA. And there were a couple of reasons that we chose IDEA when we came back. The first one being that we were previous IDEA students when we lived in the interior. They made it very easy. We were coming back from Hawaii at a really weird time of year where we were going to miss the cutoff for funding. And we had already bought a house, but we weren't in the state. And IDEA made it very easy for us because we had purchased the house to, retain, and we were residents, but it was just awkward and Connections couldn't facilitate that. So we went back to IDEA. The other reasons that we went back, and I haven't checked in a couple of years, so I actually don't know if your policies have changed, but quite a few years ago, IDEA changed to pooling all of the funding into one for all of the children in your family. And so, because I do have 7 kids, as some of you guys know, when your kids get to high school, there's a lot more expensive things. And over the years of homeschooling, I have a whole library of curriculum. And so for my younger kids, I don't have to buy curriculum. I usually just buy the workbooks, and I don't spend a whole lot of money on my younger kids. So IDEA made it very easy to facilitate more expensive college courses for my high school students. That was one of the big things. And they also did the rollover, which I think Connections has started doing, but I'm not sure. Like at the end of the year, all of our extra funds just rolled over into the allotment for the next year. So like I said, I don't know if you have changed that, but that over the years has been one of the reasons that we did not switch over to Connections, because I have quite a bit of money in our rollover that I know that when they get to college classes, we're going to be using that. So with that in mind, I think Connections is a fabulous program. I have a lot of friends that are in Connections, and they definitely value what they have there. I think you guys are doing a good job. So I don't have anything against what you're doing. If I happen to have children who want to take high school classes, that would make me want to come over to Connections for sure. There are a couple of things that would actually bring me to Connections. And one of them is in Alaska, we don't have a lot of indoor things to do for our kids in the winter. And we do not have access to gyms. We don't have access to anywhere to play indoor sports. We're not allowed to use the public buildings at the schools. Possibly with the Connections getting the prep school, if the gyms become open, I would switch to Connections if we could actually use those facilities for our children during the winter months, for sure. Our kids, unless you happen to belong to a church that allows you to use your facilities, you don't have access to that here. And that is definitely something that would be really helpful for the homeschool community to have access to that. Something else that would help with that is I think neither Connections nor IDEA has a strong scholarship. I don't know what to call it. Yeah, post-high school. So you both do post-high school, but I have not found anyone who really helps our kids navigate scholarships. I have multiple children that have graduated, and I've got another one on the way this year and one the next year. And they just feel very lost at how to navigate actively applying for scholarship, where to find them, how to do it. It's a difficult thing. So anyway, that would definitely be something that would bring me to Connections, if you could actively facilitate scholarship opportunities for kids, and not offering scholarships necessarily, but helping kids navigate finding and applying for scholarships. That definitely would be a big one. So I'd say that's the two biggest things that would bring me over to Connections at this point. Well, three would be if my kids want high school classes, indoor facilities, and help with scholarships navigating post-high school. So anyway, thank you.
Can you tell me your first name again?
Tiffany. Tiffany Holt.
Holt.
H-O-L-T. Yep.
Thank you, Tiffany. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Next. Free online. Can you give me a name, please? Pardon? Mariah, if you can unmute yourself and use your outside voice. It was hard to hear some of the online folks. Thank you. Mariah, you should be unmuted if you can begin, please. Okay, Julie McDonald, if you can unmute yourself, we're ready for you. And we'll try to go back to those that maybe haven't heard us, but Julie. Julie, can you hear us? You should be unmuted. Yes, Chandra, can you hear us, and can you please unmute?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can. You've got 3 minutes, please.
Well, firstly, I just want to thank all of you there for this opportunity, and also for the Zoom option, as I live down in Anchor Point. So it's quite the drive for this late in the evening. So I'm gonna go kind of the long way here. I apologize, but I'll stick to my 3 minutes. voting districts. It doesn't seem like something that would be related, but it is. I went to vote early voting last week, and I couldn't vote for the district, the school board district member that represents the school that my son should be going to school to if he went to public school. So just to have a look at that, my son, my home is in the Nikolaevsk service area, but not, I would have to vote in District 3. And so I can't vote for the person that should be representing me. I'll move on. So funding, I think that's a big thing for the district and for parents. I think the easiest way to bring people in is to offer more of an allotment, which I understand that you guys are capable of doing. You can choose to offer more than the minimum that is required to be given to homeschool students. So raising that bar there, you'd get some more families signing up in a hurry. But I would be interested for myself, that's not going to bring me there. I would be interested in knowing, where is the rest of it going? I want to see evidence of the benefit to my child, my school children that are in homeschool programs. I want to see benefits for them in our school district or in our community. There is not as much overhead for the homeschool programs as there are the brick and mortar schools. And that money, I understand for the Galena School District, they got a new pool for their school with those extra funds that they've garnered from around the state, people signing up for the IDEA program. And so I think that we would just love to see evidence of those dollars benefiting the homeschool students themselves. For example, our homeschool, we have a co-op here in Nikolaevsk, and we go to the Nikolaevsk pool for swimming, and we have to pay for our homeschool time, swimming time. And I feel like these things should be free to our school age children, whether they're in KPBSD programs or not. We all pay tax dollars, and we want to see the school age children in our communities educated. We want to see them swimming strongly. We live on the coast. I think that should be a priority. Another thing that would bring me back to connections or a KPBSD program would be responsiveness to parents' concerns. And I don't mean that we have a listening session, even though this is fantastic. But what I mean is that we come to the table when parents express a concern, that the district responds with a solution that they can actually implement. So we love to be heard. That's great, but I want to see things. I want to see action taken. And I'd like to see more transparency on the action taken as well. I want to, I don't just want to hear, well, we took action. I want to know what happened. I want to see accountability. So that all goes hand in hand with the funding and everything. I want to see my dollars at work. And I think a lot of us feel that way. The other thing is brick and mortar schools. I will not put my kid in a public school. One of the reasons is, and I know that we've had it here, but I know horror stories up in Wasilla, pedophiles as teachers in the schools. I'd love to see, if you're going to spend money on our kids in this community, I'd love to see it go into security systems for our schools, cameras in our schools protecting our kids that are in those brick and mortar schools. The other thing is co-op funds. A lot of homeschoolers form co-ops. There's been a lot of co-ops formed just in Homer alone in the last 3 years. And we hire teachers, we hire tutors, we spend money on materials and everything, and the parents are pulling out of their own pockets for this stuff a lot of the times. And I would just love to see some funds allotted to that. If there's some co-ops that are, making a real honest effort to educate these children to the best, even higher than, they're really going above and beyond here. And I'm not saying that just your traditional in the home homeschool parents aren't, but a co-op takes a lot of effort and a lot of money. And let's maybe see if we can't throw some money their way and say, here, you can get a smart screen, or something like that, something extra for these co-ops. So let's see. Why?
Chandra,
Yes,
you're
I went over.
you're way over.
Okay, well, I sure do appreciate it, and thank you guys for being here tonight.
And I think everyone, I mean, it's easy to find our email addresses. Mine's PMICCICHE@kpb.us. Mr. Superintendent.
Chandra actually has my email. So
Okay.
Oh yes, I have many.
Well,
Mhm.
well, you know where to find us, because I'd like to keep this conversation going. So what you couldn't say in 3 minutes, please keep things coming.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay, Julie McDonald, we're going to unmute you and love to hear your testimony for 3 minutes, please. Ms. McDonald? Okay, in the room, who's next? Okay, well, we'll come back. So who else here would like to testify? It's a little bit like when you go to the auto parts shop and the folks in the room, you're like standing there and they keep taking calls. I'm gonna give you priority if you're here, so we'd love to hear from you. We'll get back to the Zoom folks in a little bit.
All right. Well, hey, I'm Andy Cizik, and we've been a part of this community for a while, and we did homeschool our children. And back then, I don't know that even Connection existed. And if they did, they pretty much poo-pooed the homeschooling, and it was, idea was arms wide open. So we did go with them, and we had a great experience with them. My question here is, what is the root of this? I mean, is this for the children? Okay. Is this to better the children in their education, or is this to make up a financial difference so that the brick and mortar school system can hopefully not take us under? Okay. That's a big concern of mine. And you see that a lot of times where I was a athletic director for a number of years for Cook Inlet Academy. And I sat across the room many times with Billy Strickland, and I looked him straight in the eyes and I said, is this about ASA or is this about the children? Okay. We need to make sure this stuff is for the children. That's who, without children, we don't need schools, right? It's kind of like without cars, we don't need roads. You drive to Anchorage or you drive to Seward and you're stopped 10 times. They think them roads are for the construction. No, it's for the cars. It's to move cars. If we don't have cars, anyway, little rabbit trail. But it's same principle is what I'm trying to give you an example on. And also, since I mentioned Cook Inlet Academy, when they got accredited, okay, by the Alaska Association of Christian Schools, as soon as they did that, the public school fell over themselves to give them a double accreditation of their blessing of public school system too. Okay, so obviously their accreditation is much higher standards than what the public school system is. So they have children that go all over the globe to different schools with they had a great counselor. They did have a lot of great things going, and they still do. But my point is that they maybe operate at about a 25% budget of what the public school system does. And they got their brick and mortar, they're part of ASA, they got shop, they got, I mean, they're doing a great job. Okay.
So there's like the 75% difference that we can sharpen our pencil on. And I've sat up here and testified before, when we were doing homeschool, if you went through all the hoops and loops and we used a Christian curriculum, which was not reimbursed in any way, shape, or form, even with IDEA, but we still chose that route. Okay. And so there was still the parts that they would, well, gee, should we pay for that or not? Well, that accounted, if we got all the funding, okay, for homeschooling our children, that was roughly 10% of what the allotment was. Like that one lady said, well, what happens to the other 90%? Okay, it didn't really benefit me in any way, shape, or form, or my children's education. You know, we got somewhere around 16. Well, we started about 1,000, and then it worked up to about 1,600, I want to say, back when we were doing it. And therefore, what's happening with all this astronomical amount of money? Okay, there's 90% difference there. Okay, the first example, there's 75% difference. In the second example, there's 90% different. So
you're over by quite a bit, but if you can wrap it up, summarize, that would be appreciated.
That was like 30 seconds. Anyway, well, it's pretty much summarized. I mean, if you have questions, I would be glad to entertain that. But in my point, our school system, and namely the brick and mortar system, is a blood-sucking leech, okay, that is vacuuming up and causing deficit. So if everybody were to be homeschooled, which might not be a bad idea, let's say if you go to extremes, you wouldn't need buildings, okay? The parents, you know, you might need a pool or two or some sports, but you know, go to extremes and figure this out. You know, that would be so beneficial. You don't need buses, you don't need buildings, utilities, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, just some thoughts.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I bet you made the story. Usually when someone closes with a blood-sucking leech, they make it into the news story. Next. Anyone else? We were scheduled till 8. We're happy to listen to everyone that wants to speak tonight. I'm learning some great things. It's nice to hear from all of you. I think it's very important. It's a great discussion, but we shouldn't have worn you out yet. Thank you.
So I don't drink it. My name is Megan, and I currently have a preschooler. So I'm not in homeschool officially yet, but it is something we plan on doing. And I actually am enrolled in the Connections. Sorry. Sure. I'm in the, we're in the Connections Ready, Set, Connect pre-K program. And I just wanted to say that that's something that we'd really do appreciate having available to us. Because it's my understanding that previously, either through Connections or IDEA, you had to have an older child enrolled to get into pre-K through them. So I like that this is available to us this year. I think it's the second year they've been doing it. And that's probably it. Just want to say I appreciate it. Keep it short. And if there was a space for like a co-op type thing, I know people talked about clubs or get-togethers, and that would be nice. We had started a co-op last year with a couple different people when we would meet at the library. But I know there's a need for that, to get together with other parents.
I appreciate your testimony. She had 1:40 to spare. Look at that. Next. Anyone else online while these folks are gathering up their courage, which Mariah? She unmuted?
Am I here?
Yes, we can hear you. Please feel free to, I assume this is Mariah Schlott?
No, this is Julie.
Okay, welcome, Julie. It's nice to have,
Hi.
thank you. Continue, please.
All right. I think Mariah was trying to get on too because we were just texting back and forth, but for some reason, neither one of us can call in. Anyways, my name is Julie. I'm a parent here at Nikolaevsk. I grew up here in this community in the village. I originally took my daughter out a few years ago because she and I were both horribly treated actually by a then principal and the teacher there. On top of things, there's bully situations and stuff. But the biggest reason was her IEP was not touched. And as a matter of fact, I went in every week, once a week, and made a pest of myself as a parent saying, what's going on with her IEP? What's going on with her IEP? To the point where that math teacher would not talk to me. He would hide in his office. And then he finally had the nerve to say, I didn't realize she had an IEP about in January or so. Meanwhile, my daughter right now in 8th grade does not know her times table. So that is one of the biggest reasons she is not in a brick and mortar school. Now, I did not strive ever to be a homeschool parent. I have a lot of respect for homeschool parents, but that wasn't me. I don't have it in me. We had in Nikolaevsk, we had close to 100 kids. By the time everybody left because of this whole situation where children were not being taught and a whole bunch of other things, we were down to 4 or 5 children. Now get this, a whole huge school from almost 100 children to 5 kids left. District did nothing. They kept it open, which was great. I'm glad they did. But meanwhile, every other kid that was supposed to be in Nikolaevsk was scattered to Ninilchik, to Chapman, to homeschool, to Homer schools. So all these children are scattered all over the district while we have a beautiful school sitting there empty. And now we've started a co-op. We're homeschooling. Thank goodness there's a bunch of great moms and dads out there that are doing it, because here's my daughter who since September finally is learning her times table. And again, I think we have about the same amount of children in the co-op as the school has now, but we are not allowed in there. I'm not sure what the district is doing or why they're keeping an empty school while there's children learning in a water plant conference room. Get that? Isn't that great? They should be really proud of themselves right now. I know I'm proud of all the parents. What was the other things? I chose ideas because I was so frustrated with the district, and ideas seems to make things a lot easier. The district keeps saying that they want to connect with homeschoolers, but yet our kids are not allowed inside of our own village school, in the village that we all grew up in. And the school is sitting there almost empty while the kids are being taught at a church hall, and the older kids are in a water plant conference room. All that was donated by the Nikolaevsk Inc. because we have no choice. We either drive our children to Homer or Nikiski and Ilchik or Chapman or somewhere else, or we do this. It's absolutely outrageous, actually. I know at one point the superintendent was told that there's no children in the school because there is no children in the village. That's a very big lie. Whoever told the superintendent or whoever, someone there.
Julie, I appreciate your testimony. We've got 10 minutes left. I mean, we can stay longer, but you're over time, and you can feel free. Well, you did a good job. You got a lot in there, but you can email us as well, and I'd be interested in reading your email if you want to add some additional information. But thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Certainly. Next are we going back to Mariah Schlott? So you would unmute, let's see, Joe says, and I listen to what Joe says, *9 to unmute. Is that correct? If you're on a cell phone, *9 to unmute. So Mariah, are you there? Okay. Anyone else in the room? Anyone else online? Okay. Micah Van Buskirk. Micah, can you unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes, please.
Hi, thank you for doing this. I never intended to homeschool my children. I am passionate about public education. Although for some fairly minor reasons, I did choose to pull both of my kids out of elementary school. They just had some minor gaps that I wanted to address individually with them. And they ended up being homeschooled longer than I expected for a couple of reasons I'll get into in a minute. But the thing that surprised me most when I started homeschooling was how much I thought I was an involved parent until I started homeschooling. I was the volunteer, I did the PTA, I did everything that I thought was important as a parent, but what I wasn't paying attention to was what was going on with my kids. And to have to learn my children's learning style and to get down in the dirt with them about what they were learning and how they were writing and their multiplication tables was transformational for me. And it's something that I would wish every parent would have that opportunity to get in and really engage with what their children are learning. And that to me was the greatest gift. I wouldn't give up the years that I homeschooled my children for anything now, because it was just a really, really special time. And we learned so much about each other. Anyways, that if there was a way the district could prioritize getting parents really involved in more ways than making copies, but really involved in what the kids are doing, get more information out to the parents about what's going on with their kids, I think that's extremely valuable. I was surprised how many people in our community was not in Connections, because we have such amazing Connections staff here in Seward. We have amazing teacher and secretary, and I just could not fathom why anybody would go anywhere else that wasn't supporting local employment and our staff here. And so I started asking around, and I was really surprised at the questions I got about messaging, about consistent messaging from Connections. One teacher would come in or advisor would come in and say one thing, and then that rule would be different the next year. So I think if something could be improved, consistent messaging across the whole Connections from year to year could be really, really valuable. And then there was the religious curriculum issue. And I don't understand how, if we're all following the same state law, some districts can do it and some districts cannot. And I'm passionate about science. And so I probably bought 10 different science books to figure out which ones to teach my kids from. And the best ones were the ones that had religious curriculum. And I paid for those myself, but it wasn't obtrusive. It was just like occasionally there'd be, isn't this amazing? Isn't our creation amazing? These are not things that should be objectionable to our school system. I think we should have some leeway there. And I think that's a big part of why so many people went to IDEA. In Seward, I kept homeschooling my kids longer than I expected because Seward has so few opportunities for kids. Our high school has, well, except until we got music given to us after the beginning of school, we had 0 electives in our high school. 0, no music, no art, no drama available to our kids. So once I got into homeschooling and saw all the opportunities that could find for my kids, because there is so much out there, to go back to the brick and mortar school, both my kids are back in school, was very difficult to not have these opportunities and to see my kids taking 3 and 4 distance education classes with limited supervision at the school for these classes just to get their graduation requirements. So Seward is, the average across the district is 10% of the kids are homeschooled. In Seward, over 25% of our kids are in Connections. And that is simply because of the lack of opportunities here. Similarly, we have no alternative education programs here in Seward, and that those kids end up going to Connections if they go to any program, if they don't drop out, and that those families aren't necessarily the best ones to support that. So there's some good and some bad in those high numbers in Seward for Connections. Sports is another thing where we have a huge number of kids here that do sports that are homeschooled in Connections and other programs. I think that if a kid comes from out of our district and that money, that student allocation money, state money hasn't come to our school district, those kids could and should be paying higher sports fees because our school's paying for our school district's paying for those coaches, those fields, all that equipment and travel. And if we are getting kids from outside of Connections playing sports, which we have quite a few in Seward, that their activity fees could be more. Similarly, our school counts, because we have so many kids in Connections in Seward, our school counts in terms of how much activity money we get and how much, what division our sports teams are put into are based on our school enrollment, even though our Connections kids and Idea kids inflate our athletics. I don't know if this makes sense. Inflate our team numbers quite a bit in Seward.
Micah?
Yep, sorry, I'll stop.
I'm just trying to be fair. You're also way over. But it's great information. Again, I'm going to encourage emails on what you couldn't cover tonight. I know 3 minutes is not a long time, but please email us what else you'd like for us to know. Anyone else online? iPhone. And I've been at some of these meetings where bad things happen when there's not a name. So let's get a name, please.
Jason Carone.
Okay, Jason. Yes, you've got 3 minutes. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. I was the one that was failing before on Mariah's deal there. Essentially, I just wanted to cover a couple things. I heard a few points there. The swimming pools, I would like to say that I read a report today that came out last year that 1.7 out of 100,000 kids 0 to 14 drown in this state. So I'd like to reiterate that that's probably one of the most important things we should teach our kids. With as much water we have, with most coastline in the country, it'd be good for all the kids to learn how to swim and not have to worry about who's paying what, and it's just common sense. And then I'd like to address some use of public buildings, especially in the Kenai Peninsula Borough here, as far as district buildings. I did notice on one of these, let's see, the policy 1330 or 1240 rather, the mention that the priority would be educational events or school-related activities. And I just wanted to, I'm not going to try to pinpoint anything, but I'd like to remind those who need to be reminded that when kids are in a co-op or in homeschool, that they should be invited and included in sports activities, meaning the building, the gym, the pool, or what have you. So that, and then now just a little mention, I'm 47-year resident on the Kenai Peninsula. I have 6 kids, 4 of which are in school right now. And we've taken all of our kids and we enrolled them in IDEA for, well, a litany of reasons, but most of which was the lesser of the heavy-handedness, I guess is how I'd phrase it. We had, it's easier for us. We can do what we want, plain and simple. And I just wanted to reiterate that, you know, I hear the same thing from a lot of these parents for the same reasons. Some are ideological, some are just logical reasons pertaining to their lifestyle. I'd just like to make sure that we include these kids when it comes to sports. Also in head counts, there was an incident where a team couldn't be formed because there was not enough brick and mortar kids. And then we had plenty of homeschool kids to supplement, but they couldn't make the team anyway. I found that ridiculous personally. I mean, if it's all about the kids, what are we doing? I mean, it's basically just logic. So that's about all I had, Mr. Mayor. I will email and contact you with the rest, but I thank you for your time and being able to get through finally.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. I appreciate your testimony. You ended like right at 2 minutes and 59 seconds. So that's pretty good. Next online. Okay. We've accommodated everyone online. Who else here would like to testify? We'd love to hear from you. If you just came for the free pizza, Dwayne will treat you any night to free pizza, but if you're here to testify, we'd love to hear from you. Mr. Carpenter.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Mayor, thanks for holding the meeting. Superintendent, good to see you here. So I thought I would just start by saying there's a common thread through a number of the conversations that have happened this evening regarding religious curriculum. It was a reason why we chose to go with IDEA in 2013 after about 12 years of homeschooling in 4 different states while we were in the military. And none of those states had any programs that were like what Alaska has. We never had any financial assistance with buying curriculum, and we were very surprised and pleased when we moved back home to Alaska and found out that our curriculum we would receive some financial assistance with buying curriculum. I hope that the problems that we experienced with the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District have been resolved. We have, so last year with our children in the IDEA program, they will graduate. But we have grandkids that are coming on, and I know that my children are going to, my daughter will homeschool her kids. Don't know which program she'll go to, but the state constitution specifically addresses the religion piece of this. And I think there's an interpretation problem. Article 7, Section 1 can be found if people want to look at it. It says no money shall be paid from public funds for the direct benefit of any religious or other private educational institution. And I think that's where the kind of the root of the problem is with regards to this. One district might have interpret that different than another district. And so maybe there's some leeway for the Kenai Peninsula Borough to reassess their interpretation. I had a counselor, didn't tell me to my face. So the interesting thing of growing up in Micciche and then bringing your kids back to Micciche and trying to put them in public school. And I'm not going to get into the whole problems we had there, but I had one counselor, and this is anecdotal and helps to explain what I think is kind of a root problem here. I had a counselor in the earshot of a close family friend in the public school while my kids were there for one semester in Micciche, said, I can't believe that those kids haven't ever been in school. 3 of my kids have graduated now with SATs high enough to get performance scholarships to the state. The ignorance that I experienced as a parent coming into the school district, as a homeschool parent doing the right thing for more than a decade, that ignorance from the staff was the reason that I left and the reason that I feel there's broken trust with the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District. I hope that's fixed. Specifically, we came in after 12 years. We didn't have a state transcript. We never participated in the school district. And the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District had no way to take what the parents have said we've taught our kids and translate that into something that you would accept. You had one way. You said, give us your classes that you've taught your kids, your transcript, your lessons and your works examples, and then we will take that into a closed door meeting that you're not privy to go to, and we'll decide where to place your kid. So the IDEA program exists because you've got contact teachers and a demand for homeschooling kids throughout the state of Alaska. Does the Connections program exist to facilitate homeschool, or does it exist to compete with other programs? It's a philosophical, fundamental, foundational position that parents can tell. If you've got a program that's just there to compete, and if you didn't have to compete, it wouldn't be there, then the friction that is felt with a system that's trying to control, and that friction isn't felt in the IDEA program, because the IDEA program exists because homeschooling is a way of life for people in this state. So I would ask you to go back to the foundation and look at your culture and your vision for what Connections is supposed to be, and to champion parents as teachers. And I would say that if you can do that in a homeschool program in Connections, then you can probably do that in your brick and mortar schools. And you might see things start to change in your brick and mortar schools if you are encouraging parents to be teachers, whether they are homeschooling or whether they're parents in a brick and mortar school. And then you will have, I think, a cultural shift where you've got an opportunity to have parents who are now participating in their kids' lives, even in a brick and mortar school where they aren't now. They are currently able to wash their hands of the education of their kids. And that's where some of the problems exist within our schools, within our classrooms.
Your 2 extra minutes
Thank you.
primarily just due to your glowing personality, but if you can wrap it up.
I will put a period on that sentence and call it done for the evening. I know we're ready to be done.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Next we're 8:07, so running out of opportunities. One more online. That name is Natalie Thomas.
Hello.
Hello, Natalie. You have 3 minutes or so.
Okay, thanks. Hi, I'm one of the 10 families in the Nicolaivus Homeschool Co-op, and I have 3 school-aged children, 2 that are not yet school-aged, and this is our 2nd year homeschooling. I have a 1st grader and 2 kindergartners, and it's way too much. I have 5 kids age 6 and under, and homeschooling is just way too much. It's impossible, but I feel like I have no other choice. My husband and I made that decision because he worked in the public schools in Homer and in Micciche and Nicolaivus, and saw firsthand just unacceptable stuff from the administrators and propaganda pasted in the school hallways. And so that's why we've chosen to homeschool, and thank God for our co-op, because it's just too much for me by myself to do it. And it's taken an extraordinary effort from 10 families to keep it going. And it's actually amazing what we have going. And it's only possible because of the hospitality of the Nicolaivus Community Site Council, letting us use their church hall and their water tower office, and the neighbors next door letting us use their playground for PE. Starting to get cold, and it would be really nice to have access to the Nicolaivus school gym, as well as free access to the Micciche pool. And so those are our main concerns for our kids. We really just want to give them the advantage that the other school kids have across the road at Nicolaivus School, and we would like to be in that building. It's unfortunate that we have had to go to these extraordinary measures, but like I said, we just don't feel like we have any other choice. And we want to work with the district. And
So Natalie, can I ask you a question?
yeah,
It's
we would
first
love
time
to have
tonight.
access to the gym and the pool in the Micciche.
Natalie,
Sure.
we're kind of moving off topic. Let's get back to the topic, because I'm really fascinated in what a co-op does. How does that work?
So it's just families working together to homeschool their kids. So we've hired a teacher for the K through 6th graders, and parents are working as aides and bus drivers and PE teachers and art teachers and government teachers and biology teachers. And we're, putting in full time, like 20 to 40 hours a week as parents to to work together to give our kids more of an opportunity than what we could do individually in our own homes in a rural setting. I live, a mile from the village, but it still takes me almost 15 minutes to drive from my home to the village. And so, I'm actually with Connections. The rest of our co-op is with Idea. I haven't made the switch over yet because I just haven't, but I have nothing bad to say about Connections. I love that they have that relationship with Spark. We used to really utilize the Spark building when in the wintertime when I lived in Homer last year. This year living in Nicolaivis, that's too far of a drive. That's not going to work. And that's why we want so badly to have access to the Nicolaivis school building.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Thomas. I appreciate your testimony. And again, feel free to email any of us. I know 3 minutes is a short period of time. It's 8:12. Do we have anyone else online?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else in the room? Last chance. Yes, we'll divide your 3 minutes by 1 if it's. No, we'd love to hear from you. Ms. Renfro, you're next. We've got some friends that I know have a lot to say, but are shy coming to the mic, so.
I have a lot to say. I'll come up. And Tiffany Holt again. One of the things I was thinking about as I was sitting here listening, we have a co-op and we go on a lot of field trips. About half of our kids are in Connections and the other half are in Idea. I have thought a lot about the fact that Idea and Connections, they both do activities for the kids that are available.
The mountain lion
Same thing with their co-op.
One second, please. Can you? Just mute them all. We'll see if they still want to testify after this.
Yeah, so these
Okay.
kids have grown up with each other. They're each other's best friends. We have about, I think right at 40 kids in our co-op right now. And
40?
yeah, I think we've got about 40 this year in our co-op. And by the way, if you would like to come on a field trip to see what a co-op does, you're welcome to come over. We meet on Wednesdays. But sorry. But one of the things I've noticed over the years is that Idea has their activities and field trips and Connections has their ideas and field trips, and there is no crossover in between them. And these kids, they don't go to public school, they homeschool together, and they're not able to go to activities that are planned. And if there is any possible way to kind of bridge that gap between the two programs, because they're both excellent and there are a lot of kids that are friends that are in both programs. And I don't think it would be that difficult to set up activities where Idea funds their students, Connections funds their students, and we're able to bridge that gap. I know like with our robotics teams that we used to do, Connections didn't have one, but we weren't allowed to have the Connections kids come join our Idea robotics team. We had a phenomenal robotics team a few years ago. I'm not involved in that anymore, but, my kids' friends who are in Connections wanted to do robotics and they couldn't do it with their friends. So if there's any way to facilitate the ability for these kids to take part in field trips and programs, and at the same time, their respective programs fund them, that would absolutely be phenomenal. And the other one, which many people have mentioned, is swimming. Of all the places I've lived, Alaska has the absolute worst rate of swimming of anywhere. It is a problem. The state is very well aware of it. Everybody knows it. That's why we have life jackets everywhere. Our kids do not have access to pools. We do have our pools here, but we school during the day. And so 8 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, depending on which school you go to, not an option. And 12 to 1:30 is usually not an option either for us as far as homeschooling goes. So I know the schools are an issue, both in the public school system and for the community currently. But the homeschoolers, if you make it available to us at a time that is appropriate for homeschooling, we will come and literally open it. We will come because currently we don't have access to facilities. And we're all Alaskans, we know. We only have about 3 months that we can swim outdoors. And most people don't want to swim in the lakes because it's cold. So that is definitely something that needs to be addressed.
Okay, Ms. Holt, your second 3 minutes is, you should run for office. You are, no, thank you. That's great. great information. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Okay, I really want to thank you. Any closing comments, Mr. Heyman, before we go to our superintendent?
Probably should let the superintendent go first because.
Want me to go first?
Yeah, why don't you
All
go
right,
first,
I'll go
Clayton? That'd be great.
Hey, Doug, can you say, no, I'm kidding. No, I appreciate all the input tonight, right? It's, doing this kind of thing is not always easy because you're going to hear a lot that you don't like. I learned a long time ago to check my ego and listen. Because that's how you learn rather than get defensive. So very appreciative of hearing different ideas, different ways we could do things. I do want to leave because we're about every kid having an education. And when we talk about the competition piece, Doug and I have talked about this quite a bit. When we say competition for us, yes, there's this financial piece that is big, obviously, but the competition is we want to get as best as we can be for our kids. It's about the kids. This is for them. And I think Doug will talk a little more eloquently about that than I am at this point. But it's about doing things the best we can for every family in our district. And then I also want to say, we're here on Homeschool Crowd, but we have a lot of great things happening in our brick and mortar schools too. I know this meeting's not about that. And I think it's just like everywhere, not all homeschool families are doing great. Not every brick and mortar has the best thing everywhere. We have a lot of great in both places. And so I want to make sure anybody listening to and our staff that, overall our staff are incredible and they're doing great things. And we do get great outcomes from our kids. We get them here at Connections. I'm sure IDA has the same thing. I don't know their outcomes. I'm just thinking 2 years ago, we had an IDA kid that went to West Point, took some classes with our school and then went there. And this last year, we had 2 from Kenai Central going to West Point, right? And from, yes, Connections. Did I just say something else? That connect. Oh, no wonder you looked at me that way. I'm so tired. I'm tired. I'm ready for that pizza too, by the way. But yeah, from Connections, right? And so we do have great things happening here. We have great things in our buildings. I'm just 2 small examples, but I know those are too easy to resonate with. And that said, we're hearing a lot. I took a ton of notes, and Mr. Heyman and I will talk. And I don't want to take up too much more time, so Doug, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I really needed to hear a lot of those things. And I lost your name, Holt, Mrs. Holt? Yeah. Kelsey. Yeah, I didn't. Tiffany. Yes, Tiffany. Well, because you said you would switch over, I'm excited because we're already addressing many of the things. I have a phenomenal staff. They rock. And I was watching out here some of their faces and stuff, and it's like, oh, we're already doing that. Oh, we're already doing that. We haven't gone public because before we have a plan, we want to make sure it's a really good plan and that it works for everybody. And I have put off our culmination discussions because we're missing this discussion. And so now we have this to go with as well. I heard a lot of great suggestions, and there's a couple of them though that were kind of tongue in cheek. One of them was, whatever idea is doing, we should be spying on them. Who was it that said that? Was that? Oh, thank you. My own daughter was working with IDEA. And so, yes, we are. I am not too proud to go right and some of my best friends. And first of all, I'm going to take one step back though, and I'm going to be slammed in the back of the head probably. There are great people in IDEA. The families are great. The staff is better. What we're going to do is make sure that we can serve you even better and listen to your needs. I am not going to ever bash those folks over there. They're doing a great job. Deb Michael is a friend of mine. These are good folks. I'm not into that kind of competition. The kind of competition I am into is to actually make the very best program so that your kids don't end up living in your basement the whole life. We want your kids to be every opportunity open to them. And that's what we're about. We've got a lot of things. And, one of the things was the field trips, paying that ahead of time. Julie Lindquist is currently working on that so that we can do it. That's just one tiny example of the things that were brought up here tonight that, yeah, we have heard already because you've been kind enough to share those to our staff members. And so now we are making these plans. It fully intend, and I hope, and Clayton and I have not had an opportunity to talk about it, but I hope that connection even becomes part of a solution that's going on in Nico. I don't know what that looks like yet. And it's premature for me to go any further than that, but Connections is part of the KPBSD, and we're here to serve the people of the Kenai Peninsula. That's it.
Well, I'm gonna interject real quick because Greg Melvin and I have been talking about a Nico co-op, and we had a brief
Well,
conversation.
I won't steal the thunder. On
Yeah,
that,
yeah, all right.
And we had the good fortune, not only is Greg going to be working with that, but Greg bleeds Connections. He used to be in our office, and we're going to have a great start with that. I'm not going to go a whole lot further. There were some things that were, the state law and that sort of thing. We need to make sure that we define it well and then publish that well, because there were some misunderstandings, and this isn't a time or place for me to do rebuttals. So, but there are some questions about that, and the biblical instruction and so forth. We do have state laws that we're following, and that's exactly why we're doing it. I mean, if you look in the dictionary next to conservative white Christian, you'll see my picture. But that's not the position that I'm in right now. I'm here serving the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District and their children and your children, and that's what we're going to be doing. I get a little passionate about it, and I'm incredibly competitive, but it's not about, for me, it's not because I think we need more money. That's what these guys need to do, or that's what I thank God for our administration and for our politicians, because that's what makes it work. But as far as my job and my passion and my holy cow and my staff, it's about the children. It's about making them successful in their lives and opening every door so that your family can make those choices together. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Heyman. I appreciate you being here. And I'll close with a couple of very brief things. It is absolutely about competition. It's competition to provide the very best education, the very best educational outcomes for the kids of this district that we can possibly provide. And if a school board member, I hope they're not here, said that they believe it should be illegal for parents to have rights and a freedom to choose whether their kid is educated, I'm sorry that you heard that from a school board member. We should never lock down mediocrity. We should always be competing for the best. That's what this meeting's about. I don't really care about the money. We have a homeschool program, and I wanted to be here for the right reasons. And I hope our kids and our families have the confidence to attend our homeschool program over time. We have to compete. If another program is providing a service that we're not providing, we can slice and dice the details and the specifics. The bottom line is we have to provide what our parents need for their kids to be successful in their district. I don't want to get hung up on the details. I want to get hung up on delivering the very best we can. So I learned a lot tonight, and I really appreciate it. Please reach out to all of us. I really appreciate you guys being here tonight. You were invited, and I didn't know if anyone was going to show up, and most of you did. So I really appreciate that. Richard had to leave early, but thank you all for showing up, spending your evening with us. We had 75 or 80 people that spent several hours with us, and I think it's really important what we heard. We will put it to work. I'll just be checking in with these guys. I don't run the school district. I just kind of have the checkbook. So we're working together on how we can be responsive to all of you. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Thanks.